Hi, welcome back. This is week 8, video number 2. And we're going to continue with our discussion of revising academic writing. In this video, we're going to take a look at the apostrophe. And the apostrophe is a confusing little punctuation mark, but it basically has 3 uses. The first is to form possessives of nouns. So that means to show ownership of something. The second is to show the omission of letters, and that happens in contractions. And the third is to indicate plurals of lowercase letters. So we don't use that one as often. It's really 1 and 2 that we're going to look at. I'm going to go to this link above because I think this website does a really good job of showing the apostrophe and how it's used. So I'm just going to pull up the website and we'll go through the different rules for the apostrophe. Just take me a second here to pull this up. And I will, of course, give you the link to this particular website so that you can go to the website yourself and review it. Okay, so I've just clicked on the link and I'm at the web page here. As I mentioned, I am going to give this link to you in a file with some enrichment videos that I think will help you with both the comma and the apostrophe. But this site is really good. I really like the way that it explains the apostrophe. And it claims that the apostrophe causes more grief than all of the other punctuation marks put together. I'm not sure I would agree. I think the comma is a little more difficult, but the apostrophe definitely is one that gives people some trouble. There's 2 very different and important uses for the apostrophe in English, and I mentioned those to you earlier, possession and contraction. Let's take a look at contraction first. So a contraction is just a fancy grammatical way of saying that you're going to jam 2 words together. So when we're using not, is, am, will, would, have, and are, oftentimes we jam those words with other words and form a contraction. When we're writing, we put an apostrophe in to show that we're leaving out some letters. Okay? So for example, if I'm using not, if I were to say is not and contract it, I would say isn't. And the apostrophe stands in for the missing O. Has not, hasn't. Had not, hadn't. Did not, didn't. Okay? When I'm using is, right, I'm also sometimes using an apostrophe in contraction. So she is, right, she is friendly, or I could say she's friendly using the apostrophe. Okay. We do this with am, will, would, have, and are. Okay. The tricky ones are its and its, your and your, whose and whose, and their, and their. So if you take a look at the website, you'll see that it gives some examples, right, that shows the difference between contraction and possession using these particular words. Okay, so that can be a little bit tricky. Remember, the easy way to tell whether you need an apostrophe or not with a contraction is to ask yourself if you're leaving out a letter. Are you jamming 2 words together to form a new word? Possession is the other place where we use the apostrophe, and the possessive apostrophe can be a little bit tricky. So I'm just going to scroll down and we're going to take a look. In most cases, okay, you simply add an apostrophe S to show possession. So if you take a look, right, they've given you some example. A ship's captain, a doctor's patient, Ibrahim's coat. The apostrophe S shows that it is the coat that belongs to Ibrahim. It is the patient that belongs to the doctor. It is the captain that belongs to the ship. And most of us are pretty good with that one. It's when we get into some of the complications where the possessive apostrophe can be a little bit of trouble. Plural nouns that do not end in S also follow this same rule. Okay, so normally when we're creating a plural of a word, we add an S on the end to show that there's more than one. But there are some words that are plural that do not end in S. So for example, children, men, women, right? These are all words that indicate that there's more than one, but they don't naturally end in an S. If we're trying to show possession with these words, we're going to add the apostrophe S in. So the children's room, the men's work, the women's club, the room belonging to the children, the work belonging to the men, the club belonging to the women. Okay. Ordinary nouns that end in an S, okay, both single and plural, show possession simply by adding an apostrophe after the S. So if we have words that end naturally with an S, whether they're single or whether they're plural, we're going to put the apostrophe after the S. So take a look at the first example, the bus's wheel. Okay, there's only one bus, but bus is a word that ends naturally with an S. If we mean belonging to the bus, we're going to put an apostrophe right after that S. Sometimes, though, we have words that end in an S because they're plural, like babies, more than one baby, or ladies, more than one lady, or teachers, more than one teacher. If we want to show that those own something, we use the apostrophe after the S. So it is the crying belonging to the babies, the tennis club belonging to the ladies, the journal belonging to the teachers. Proper names of, people, cities, and countries that end in an S can form the possessive either by adding the apostrophe plus an S or simply adding the apostrophe. I was taught when I was in school that you only add the apostrophe and not the extra S. But today, either are considered correct. So, for example, if the person's last name is Jones and you want to say it's something belonging to Mr. or Ms. Jones, you can either add an apostrophe plus an extra S or simply add in the apostrophe. Okay, so again, take a look at the example, the Hughes' home, Mr. Jones's shop, Charles's book. There is one big exception to take into account, and that's when you're using the word it. The problem with its is that it's both a contraction and a possessive. We do different things depending on the situation that we're in. If we mean it is, we're going to use it apostrophe S. Okay, so that stands for it is. So I might say something like, it's raining today. It's time to work. Any place where I mean it is, I'm going to use it apostrophe S. But if I mean belonging to it, I'm simply going to use ITS. So I might be talking about my cat. You know, I always talk about my cats. I might say the cat licked its tail. In this case, I mean the tail belonging to it. So I don't use an apostrophe because it's a possessive. This is a little bit tricky. The main thing to keep in mind, though, is if you mean it is, use the apostrophe. If you mean belonging to it, do not use an apostrophe. Just like with the comma, I have linked some really good videos that go over the explanation. I think it's worth watching them, even though they'll just be repeating what I've just told you, so that you can get a really good handle on the apostrophe use.